Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Of course, yesterday, Call of Duty about broke the internet when with the patch notes that we expected for Black Ops 7 and the beta here went out, they dropped a complete surprise by saying that they were introducing a new playlist called the Open Mosh Pit, which functions with classic matchmaking, which is essentially the same matchmaking system that Call of Duty used prior to skill-based matchmaking being introduced. So a reduced skill focus matchmaking playlist, essentially a playlist with no skill-based matchmaking, which obviously has been one of the biggest requests in COD for years, basically since MW 2019 when they cranked it to the max, right? So that of course got everybody talking, a reduced or a no skill-based matchmaking playlist. And I've already put in way too many hours in this playlist, admittedly. You guys have put me in the position I'm very blessed to be in, where I can actually go through and thoroughly test these things, and when stuff like this happens, put a lot of hours in and actually get quality feedback and quality experience to relay in videos like this. But not only do we have an actual takeaway from this playlist and a gameplay experience to go off of now, we actually have someone who was in a way directly responsible for skill-based matchmaking in COD, one of the people who worked on creating it, exposing what this change is and what this reduction to skill factoring into matchmaking is. As far as the initial takeaways go with this, I've seen the sentiment around a lot on Twitter. It seems like most people are in general agreement here that while this is great news and this is a huge step forward, the first time Call of Duty's really strongly addressed the complaint of skill-based matchmaking, doing this just as one playlist in game is going to end up with them having very skewed data. Obviously, when you see that there's a no skill-based matchmaking playlist, the sweaty players are going to flock to that because they want easier lobbies, of course. Players who care about connection are going to flock to that because they want the better connection lobbies. And those typically are the people like you and me who are chronically online and are actively tuned into this stuff. Whereas, you know, Billy Bob Joe over here, who just jumps on the game because he sees the new commercial for Call of Duty, he jumps on the beta and tests it out very casually, is not following news accounts like me or people on Twitter and whatnot. They're just playing the game. They're not seeing Open Mosh Pit. They're gonna see whatever's at the very top of the playlist and just jump on in. So the casual players that a lot of sweaty players want to play against probably are not flocking to this mode as much, and instead it's gonna be a very sweaty situation in some cases where because all the sweats are going to this mode because they want gunplay to be better, they want gunfights to be easier for them, they want to get more kills and do better, you end up finding a lot of other sweats with like-minded playstyles. That happened in plenty of the matches that I played where there were a few guys on the other team was like, yep, that guy knows what he's doing. I can see it with his movement. I can see how he's gunning me. Like, clearly that guy knows what he's doing. And then I'd turn another corner and I'd fry a guy and I was like, man, that poor player had no clue what to do when I stimmed and slid past him, right? So what I noticed is that, yes, there were still plenty of sweaty players in this playlist from my experience, and I'm definitely, you know, one of those sweaty players, but also there was a consistent balance across teams. There were situations where I was clearly the best player on my team and I felt like I was having to carry some not so great players, but on the other team there were a couple of good players and then players that I basically just dominated the whole game, and that's why I was the top of the leaderboard on my team. There were situations where my team thrashed the other team because I had myself and a couple other good players and the other team had maybe one or two good players. The matches just felt like there was better, ironically, better competition amongst the skill levels, basically, where it just felt like it was more balanced and every game played a little bit different, whereas in the normal playlist when the skill base was cranked the first day or so, every lobby felt like I was trying out for, you know, the CDL basically, and like it was COD champs, and gameplay didn't feel that different. I was having to do the same strats, the same sweat every single game, so the variety in gameplay felt noticeable for me. The biggest thing for me though is connection. The first day or two when there was no skill-based matchmaking, off matchmaking, that was a lot of the word matchmaking in one sentence, my connection was all over the place. I'd have games where it was good, typically my first few matches of the day, then I'd have games where it felt terrible. In the no skill-based matchmaking playlist, in the Open Mosh Pit, my connection essentially felt the same every single match, and that was the biggest factor to me. I don't care if there's sweaty players on my team or bad players on the other team, or vice versa, bad players on my team or sweaty players on the others. Obviously I want to drop 100 kills and 0 deaths every game, but that's not going to happen. I'll deal with it. But I want my connection to be the best at all times. I want to be able to play with my friends that maybe aren't as good as me at the game and I want for them to have a good time instead of being forced to play on my matchmaking, which is typically sweatier. And that's what this allows, which is huge. That's a huge step in the right direction, but I am a little bit worried about them having the skewed data of it being a full playlist. And I actually mentioned this on Twitter, like, this is an inherent W, an objective W, but I'd love for this to be the default matchmaking so that they have the most data possible during some of the open beta. And we'll see how they follow this up in the next few days. I'm sure we're going to get more communication on this. But as I mentioned at the start of the video, we do also have some direct response to this skill-based matchmaking update from someone who essentially worked on skill-based matchmaking for Call of Duty. So we do have this new post from Insider Gaming titled Black Ops 7 Skill-Based Matchmaking Compared to X-Defiant by X-Raven Software Matchmaking Expert. So as we go through this article here, keep in mind, if you guys enjoy the video, a like rating is always seriously appreciated. Much love to all the people dropping likes, supporting the channel here on the Black Ops 7 content. Obviously, busy few weeks ahead with Battlefield 6 dropping, Season 6, Black Ops 7 launch, not too far behind all that. So really do appreciate all the love, all the support in the videos. And if you're new here, you want to help join us on the road to 1 million subscribers, be sure to hit that sub button to stay up to date with everything going on in the FPS scene. But here's what we got from Charlie Olson, who actually was one of the original creators essentially on skill-based matchmaking. Apples, Oranges, Call of Duty, X-Defiant. X-Defiant was given a nod by Charlie Olson, who we sat down with earlier this year to get the inside scoop on everything skill-based matchmaking in MMR. Olson once spent a decade working at Raven Software, and his MMR algorithms made up the crux of Call of Duty's skill-based matchmaking model, starting with 2016's Infinite Warfare. So if you recall, if you've been around the channel for a while, we covered this when this information first dropped. Charlie Olson, basically one of the creators of skill-based matchmaking, he wrote some of the code in the MMR systems there for it. So he knows what he's talking about here, basically, right? He's still doing matchmaking stuff and whatnot. The X-Defiant reference comes from a comparison between Treyarch and Ubisoft's Mark Rubin, executive producer on X-Defiant, and how the two parties handled the math behind skill-based matchmaking. So here's the quote that says, ironically, Treyarch made the same mathematical fallacy in the Black Ops 7 patch notes that Mark Rubin made with X-Defiant. In the open mosh pit, skill consideration is drastically reduced with matchmaking, with the goal of providing more varied matches and experiences and varied outcomes. This playlist will match players with and against players of more varied skill differences than in the current multiplayer matchmaking system. It might be counterintuitive, but contrary to Treyarch's assumptions, random matchmaking actually leads to less varied match experiences and outcomes, not more. The more varied the skill differences, the less varied the outcomes. This isn't an opinion or a byproduct of player psychology, it's just a statistical reality. So what Charlie's actually saying here is that when they tone down the skill-based or not have it as the primary factor, like in the open mosh pit, you're actually gonna have less variety with your outcomes of games, whether you're doing really good or really bad, which is an interesting piece of data that he references, saying it's a statistical reality that's not just an opinion there. So clearly, like, he's had the data to back this up throughout his time working on this stuff. Olson went into the numbers and facts, saying, if you are a 90th percentile player in the general population, your expected outcome on average without skill-based matchmaking is 90%. There will be a larger variety of skills within the match, but your experience will be consistent. You will almost always be one of the two best players in the match and therefore a top performer. Ultimately, Olson predicts that Treyarch will not see the results it's after with this open mosh pit playlist, and instead it'll see heavy self-selection. He summarizes that low-skilled players will actively avoid selecting the playlist, which, as I alluded to earlier, probably just drives a lot of players, a lot of sweaty players into this mode, and you might end up running into more sweats in a game than you would if just normal skill-based matchmaking was in effect. So what's the solution here? Olson suggests that Call of Duty's developers should introduce a transparent function that allows players to check their MMR in their combat record, making skill-based matchmaking easier to understand and quantify. Also, higher skills should be rewarded in-game with higher skill lobbies and XP multipliers for said tiers. That's kind of what ranked is for. They just forced this onto us in pubs, without the choice to avoid it. So put simply, the better you are, the more you play with better players, but the more rewards you also get for doing so. And Olson also referenced this back when we first covered this topic, as that would be his idea to counter skill-based, is make it more rewarding for being good instead of feeling like you're being punished for being good, essentially. In June, Ubisoft's X-Defiant, which was once dubbed a Call of Duty killer, of course, was taken offline forever. After several critical failings, it was revealed ahead of launch in 2024 that the game's casual playlist would have no skill-based matchmaking, which was paramount to a fun and varied game experience. That's partly what Olsen was referring to above. So interesting data here directly from someone who is responsible for skill-based matchmaking in Call of Duty, or was responsible for SBMM, that goes against what a lot of us probably want to hear when it comes to this. Like, obviously we want less skill-based matchmaking for better connection, for more varied party success and enjoyment and better experiences there. But when it comes to the actual competition and everything, there's a lot of interesting data out there that that honestly provides really interesting insight, in my opinion, and a very unique perspective here. But the matchmaking update here, the classic matchmaking, kind of exposed, kind of called out here by an expert in matchmaking. Would be very curious to get your guys' thoughts down in the comments below. Do you view this open mosh pit as a good thing? Do you hope it's going to become this just universal playlist option rather than just being this one specific playlist? Do you agree with what Charlie Olsen's saying here? Curious to know your thoughts down below. If you guys enjoyed the video, though, be sure to drop a like. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button on your way out to guarantee you're always up to date with all things going on the channel. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.